I once was lost in sin, but Jesus took me in. And then a little light from heaven filled my soul. Oh, well, that it bathed my heart in love and wrote my name above. Now just a little talk with Jesus makes me whole. Oh, now let us have a little talk with. Why don't you let us tell him all about our. I know he will hear our faintest, and he will answer by him. Now when you feel a little prayer for yearning, as your heart to heaven is, you will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. It makes it right. Well, now I may have doubts and fears. My eyes be filled with tears. But Jesus is a friend who watches the day and night. I go to him in prayer. He knows my every care. Now just a little talk with Jesus makes it right. It makes. Now come on and let us have a little talk with. Why don't you let us tell him all about our. I know he will hear our faintest, and he will answer by him. Now when you feel a little prayer for yearning, as your heart to heaven is, if you do, you will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. It makes it right.
I am delighted tonight to have another opportunity to share with you, and I trust this will be impacting as well. It's very difficult to succeed in doing much of anything if we are not committed. If you all would be kind enough to come over, I don't know why they didn't give you the memo that everybody's supposed to be over here. If you don't mind, come over. That helps me out a little. I don't have to focus so far. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. If you are committed, there are very few things that you cannot do. But if you are not committed, you're not likely to succeed with very much. So being committed, we want to talk first tonight about Bible school teachers' commitments. Now, I don't have your handout, but I'm going to give to your preacher the information that's up here, so you don't have to write anything, just listen. And I thought I had it in a way that I could get it printed, but I want to get that to him, so he'll have that by Sunday. Okay, Bible school teachers' commitments. If you are not committed, don't go into the classroom if you're not committed. But you should be committed. But until you are, don't. And our commitment should be widespread. We need a broad commitment. When you have orchestrated the Bible school program properly, the Bible school in conjunction with the pulpit becomes the two driving forces in the church. So from the pulpit, we preach the church in the direction that we want it to go. And in the Bible school, we teach it in the direction that we want it to go. And when you have an effective pulpit and Bible school, you can move people, train them, you can move them pretty quickly. So there are so many things. Now I want you to think in terms of this. Brother Rogers preaches on Sunday, but his impact and his influence is far beyond the time that he spends preaching the sermon. He is touching and impacting people from so many different angles beyond his sermon, beyond the pulpit. So as a Bible school teacher, you have the opportunity to impact your students far beyond your Bible class. But you have to be committed, and we're going to talk about how we can get into that, okay? You need to be committed to being in class at least 10 minutes before class time. Now, I subscribe to the philosophy that we do not accept excuses. We don't. Why do people give excuses? I don't accept excuses. There are no valid excuses for the pilot not paying attention and crashing the plane. There are no valid excuses. There are no valid excuses for a policeman claiming he didn't know his gun was loaded and he shoot me. There's no valid excuse for that. We make too many excuses, and we expect them to be accepted because we are Christians and we expect they're going to be nice and compassionate. You know how long it takes you to get dressed on Sunday? You know how far you live from the building? Get up and get prepared, get here on time, get into class. Be here at least 10 minutes before your class starts. Here's why you need to do that. When you are already in class before your students, order is in the classroom when the students arrive. When you allow the students to get in and disorder has started before you get there, you come in trying to arrest authority. And you may never get it. So if you're there early, and you need to be there to greet your students. Greet, just like your elders are here early to greet members who are coming to worship. Get there and greet people. That just sets a good tone. All right? I will be a good example. Now, these are commitments that Bible school teachers need to make. I will be a good example in spiritual awareness during assemblies, as well as in my personal life away from the assembly. Your students are watching you. If you admonish your student to be quiet while you are talking, and your students see you talking while Brother Rogers is preaching, now they don't say anything because they respect authority, but they look at you as you are a pure hypocrite. And not only that, but they assign that hypocrisy to the church. And they cannot wait until they get old enough to stop coming to church. They can't wait because they think this is just a hypocritical group. So your personal awareness during the assembly, as well as my personal life away from the assembly. I will actively support all activities, classes, and functions of this congregation. If you're a Bible school teacher, whatever's going on, you need to be there. You need to applaud it because you are part of the driving force that's attracting people, mobilizing people, and getting people to the place where you want them to be. So I will actively support all activities. You say, well, it's just a church picnic cookout. I don't want to be there. At least go by and show your face. And yeah, I know sometimes you can't be there, so I understand that, and we're not overlooking that. But at least you need to make sure that you verbally support. So don't ever let your students hear you say, well, I ain't got time to be going down there, no cookout. You can't say that. Because you're going to go into class and teach your students to support everything, and they want to know why you don't support everything. Usually, now that cookout ain't got nothing to do with my salvation. It may not have much to do with your salvation, but it might ruin somebody else's. So you need, listen, if you are an employer, what's your name? You. Yeah. Do I know you? You look so familiar. Yeah. Okay. That's your daughter? She's on the back. She just looks so familiar, as if that's your daughter. So maybe that's why I see familiarity. She look like you. Sorry to embarrass you. I thought you was, okay. Support all activities, classes, and functions of this congregation. The church needs this. The leadership needs this. I will, now pay close attention to this one. You don't have to write it down. We'll get you the list. I will personally write a welcoming note to each person who is baptized, restored, or placed membership. So the Bible school teachers become the welcoming force. Whatever it is that we're trying to do and accomplish with this congregation, the Bible school leaders teachers are at the forefront. Blue Springs Road is not likely to ever get the church to go beyond where the Bible school teachers are willing to teach and model. I will remain motivated and enthusiastic insomuch that my motivation and enthusiasm will spiritually impact my students. Enthusiasm. I will use neither the classroom nor the class time to express my personal grievances, nor allow my students to do so. Don't use your classroom time to express personal grievances. It's not what that's for. Don't ever do that. You are here to teach a God-ordained lesson. Your pet peeves and things that get under your skin, don't ever get up in front of your class. Well, you know, such just get under my skin. We're not here to hear what gets under your skin. We are here to hear a word from God. Okay? If you cannot support it with biblical principles and concepts, it's not designed for the class, because you are discouraging people. And don't allow your students to do that. I will teach my students to love God, Christ, the church, themselves, and other people. The Bible class gives you so many opportunities to reinforce very positive concepts. I will teach my students to respect governmental, parental, and church authority. We need to put 3 asterisks on this. One of our major issues in our society is a lack of respect for authority. Now, everybody, I don't pay close attention to this. Authority. So when whoever is in authority invite you, ask you to do something, do it cooperatively. Those who are over there, I thank you for coming over. Do you know I go to churches somewhere and folk won't even move. Don't even move. Wow. Can you imagine stubbornness, uncooperativeness, rebellion on display at the church assembly? Well, I ain't got no authority to be asking me to move. Well, go ahead and move and argue about that later outside of the view of your visitors. If I went to a church and whoever asked the people to come up closer or do something and they wouldn't do it, I'd make up my mind, I don't remember that church. I don't care what's going on. Even the members not cooperative. I will personally interest myself in the personal interest of each of my students. Now that's really designed for the lower classes. If you teach high school, junior high, elementary, if you will find something that they are interested in and you interest yourself in that, they will love you and allow you to influence them. Let me tell you a little quick story. The first contact, I did not grow up in the Church of Christ, didn't know anything about the Church of Christ. The first personal contact I had with the Church of Christ that said to me, this might be a pretty good organization to look at. I was working at Kmart in Jackson, Tennessee, a man named Tom Tucker. He and his wife came in right about closing, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And she went in the store, and he stopped up off at the service desk and was talking to me. And he asked me where I go to church and a few things. And he said something that just blew me away. I was 20 years old, and Brother Tucker was at least 65 then. And he said to me, call me sometime and talk to me. He is the only grown man that has ever said to me, and he did not know me. Now, he did let me know he was a member of the Church of Christ, and I'd heard the Church of Christ radio program, etc. And I thought, man, that is some kind of impression. Because all of the old men, they didn't have time to talk to us. And he said, call me sometime and talk to me. To this day, he is the only person that I would put in there. That's amazing. He had no idea. Years later, we became very good friends after I obeyed the gospel, and his family and I are very good friends. Some of you may know his daughter-in-law. She is Cynthia Tucker, Dr. Cynthia Tucker in Nashville, that speaks on a number of ladies program, and Randall Tucker in Houston, Texas is his grandson. And he has a son who is an elder at the Jackson Street Church in Nashville. Granddaddy made an impact. You never know. So personally interested. See, here's why children don't want to be around older people. They think you have an agenda and you're not interested in their agenda at all. You just want to tell them some stuff. But once you interest yourself in their agenda, they like you and they'll connect with you. I'll teach my students to take pride in their personal lives. As a teacher, you get a chance to encourage them. If you see a child and he's not combing his hair or he's not brushing his teeth, you get a chance to teach him. He may not be learning that at home. He may have a terrible home environment. Now, we've turned everything over to the public school teachers. They do everything. We need to do that here, and it's amazing. I will encourage my students to do well in school, participate in wholesome activities, become well-rounded citizens in the community. Yeah, that's great. All right. I will teach my students to refrain from gossiping, abusing drugs, which includes alcohol, using tobacco, engaging in premarital sex and other hazards to their spiritual and physical health. You want to impact the whole child and help him or her develop their mind and their mentality so they can grow up and be a flourishing person. Once per month, I will talk with each student about things that are of his or her interest. Once again, going back to that fact, if you are interested in what they are interested in. How many of you have a hobby? Anybody here have a hobby? What's your hobby? Watching TV. Anybody else? What's your hobby? Old cars. What's your hobby? Shooting deer. Anybody else? What's your hobby? Putting puzzles together. Anybody else have a hobby? What's your hobby? Doing what? Writing poetry. You ever published any of it? Yeah, we need to talk. Okay.
One of my poems in college was, I was told, was put in the Library of Congress.
Awesome.
But I'm not sure. It's in a book called The Winter of Echoes, but I'm not sure. I've never seen it, so that's what I was told.
I gave your preacher a book Monday night written by Sister Minnie Leonard, the mother of Wesley Leonard. She wrote poems for years and gave them away and decided to publish a book, and I published it for her. And it's called This Old House. And I think there are 75 poems in there. And she said all her life she's been giving them away. Okay? So we'll publish that. Okay? Now, old cars is his hobby. He'll talk to you all day long about cars. If he meets someone for the first time, if they'll talk about cars, they've got his attention. When he come back through town the next time, he'll stop by and visit them if they'll talk about cars. So that's true with children. All right, each quarter I will arrange and participate in at least one activity for my students outside the classroom. There's nothing like inviting your students to your house once a quarter. It's amazing what 2 slices of pizza will do for a child. They will love you from now on. Pizza? Oh my goodness. It even works on college students. The Central Church has a college ministry at A&M. And on Friday night, they used to, when I was here, they had pizza and stuff at their church building. And the guy that works the ministry up there said, we get more students to come down on Friday night for pizza than we ever get for Sunday worship. Yeah, even with college students. I will encourage my students to bring friends and relatives to Bible class. I will keep my students focused in spite of distracting comments. You have to do that sometime in the adult class. Someone talk about something has not. Every now and then people are bold enough to say, well, now this ain't got nothing to do with the lesson. Well, then sit down and be quiet. It ain't got nothing to do with the lesson. This is not the opportunity for you to express your personal platform. I will thoroughly know each lesson that I am to teach. There is no excuse for not knowing the lesson that you are scheduled to teach that day. Know the lesson. I will become familiar with unfamiliar words used in each lesson and help each student apply each lesson to his or her life. Don't guess at the meaning of a word. Here's a word in the Bible verse, and you haven't even looked up the meaning of the word. And then you're going to wing it. You're going to tell your students anything. And you can't fool them because in 30 seconds, they have whipped out their phone and looked it up, and they think, you don't know what you're talking about. And you lose credibility so quickly. And they tune you out. You're like, you don't know what you're talking about. I will answer sufficiently all of my students' questions. If you do not know the answer, get it for them. That's your responsibility to get them an answer. I meet over and over again, I meet so many people that have abandoned the church because they had questions and people did not give them a healthy, holistic, sensible answer. And so they thought, you guys don't have any answers for stuff, and they just left. Questions. If you don't know the answer, get it for them. I will not teach just for content, but rather I will impart that which proceeds from a thorough exposition and application of scripture text. Don't ever say to your students, now let's be quiet, we got to get through this today. No, you're not teaching for content. We're teaching for context and information and application. And sometimes you don't get through the lesson. That's one of the handicaps of dated Bible school curriculum. And a lot of churches connected into that. I don't know, you may be connected into that. But I will refrain from running random commentary that is unwarranted by the text. Just running commentary, that ain't what that says. I will focus on a central message of the lesson. I will refine the class focus to a specific few main points rather than attempt to comment on every verse and every statement in the lesson. I will know and embody the vision of the congregation. And remember now, any athletes in here? No athletes? What'd you play? You ran track. Anybody ever been a coach? What'd you coach?
Football.
Were you the head coach in football? Okay. Did you have any assistants? You have a quarterback coach. Okay. You have a strength coach. Now, what's your name? Paul. Paul was the head football coach. He brings his assistant coaches in and say, we want to develop strong players. We're not going to pass much this year. We're just going to run from the line and run over people this year. Now, the strength coach needs to then develop strong legs in the players. So what if the strength coach decides, you know what? I just love having streamlined players for speed. He is not working in conjunction with the vision of the head coach. Because if you're going to bring in strategies that require the players to have strong legs to run the ball, but you're preparing them to catch the ball, you aren't helping me. So then in the Bible school, we need to know, where is the church going? What's the motion? What's the movement? What's the vision? So I'm now teaching it in the Bible school. Get a chance to emphasize it. I told my children when they were little, all their life, your number one objective in life is to take care of me when I get old. That's children's number one objective, to take care of your parents when they get old. And I said to them, and I want to live well. So guess what? You can't be hanging around living on me and then going to take care of me. So I put in them from day one, you're going to have to make good money. And all of my children have a house that's big enough for me to live in if I want to go live there. Matter of fact, my baby son was building a house, and I went over there during the construction phase. I said, I came over to check out my nursing home. And I walked around and I said, see, I said, the basement is on the level. I said, see, I can park right there and I can just walk right on in on the basement because it's on the level. Now, my wife thinks I'm crazy, but I suggested, we sell the house and we stay with this. We got 4 children. We stay with this child a week, then go stay with that child a week, go stay with that child a week, and go stay with that child a week. They stay with us 18 years. I ought to be able to stay with them a week. Anybody here think that's a good idea? Okay, we had 4 people thought it was a good idea. Or we might stay a month with this one, a month with that one. They don't like that, okay? But you got to know, and you got to start planting that early. And that works, okay? What's the vision of the church? Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to do? What's our next project on our agenda? Okay? I will help my students to know and embody the vision of this congregation. What is this congregation about? As a matter of fact, you need a vision statement for your family. And so whenever your children behave inappropriately, you just remind them that you are not behaving consistent with this family's vision statement. I told my sons, my daddy was very, very disciplined, and I made sure my children knew that. So when my sons would do something, I just simply say to them, who is your granddaddy? Whenever they mess up, I say, who is your granddaddy? Cleveland Marshall. That means you better get in line. And so I'm calling them into a behavior pattern by using what this family is about. The Marshall family isn't about going to jail on the weekend getting drunk. That's not what we're about. We're not about a bunch of stupid stuff. We're about being responsible citizens in the community. And it's okay. What's the Blue Springs Road Church of Christ about? So when we communicate our vision and somebody get out of line, you can say, that's not what we're about. We're not about a bunch of rabble-rousing stuff like that. Okay? I will guide the class in a wholesome direction, solicit and direct comments of exposition rather than just talk about some what ifs or I feels and I thinks. I will constantly seek to increase my Bible knowledge and bring all of my behavior into conformity of that knowledge. Those are some commitments, and you can make some more and streamline some of those. But commitments, if you aren't committed to doing something and doing something differently. See, what teachers are designed to do, we are trying to persuade students to do what they probably don't want to do. Well, if you won't, as a teacher, do anything you don't want to do, you're teaching your students to do something that they don't want to do, but you're unwilling to do something you don't want to do. See, that's not good power influence. Any questions about those objectives? Okay. Let's talk about let's kind of lighten up here a little bit. Learning does not have to be painful. You don't believe that, do you? Therefore, teach to make learning adventurous and fun. When I attended Freed-Hardeman, I had a Dr. Bobby Bush. He taught the most interesting class on campus. I took his class during the summer when you were in his class for like, I believe, 3 or 4 hours. It's one of those short courses, 3 weeks, you got to get everything done. Either we was in there 3 hours or 4 hours per day. You know, 4 hours in a class can be pretty boring. Every 30 minutes, he would divide the class up into different sections of the room and give you some kind of test case to work on that may have nothing to do with business, which is what he was teaching. And then we're back here trying to figure this thing out, and everybody's excited, and then all of a sudden he called you back, and then he teach, and he broke up the monotony. Just a wonderful class. Because we had to be in there like 4 hours. And then he cooked popcorn at his house every Tuesday night and invited anybody on campus to come to his house and eat popcorn. I went to his house to eat popcorn. I bet you he had more influence in students than most instructors, because 35 or 40 students sitting around in his house every week eating popcorn. He had more influence than the instructors who took no personal time to do something with the students. There is no substitute for knowing the subject matter that you will teach. Just knowing subject matter, though, is not enough. Teachers must enable students to learn and live the subject matter. Always know more and have more material to teach than time will allow. You do the students a favor when you run out of time, but you do them a disservice when you run out of material. Less is more. Remember the garden rule: cramming more seed into a small area does not produce more vegetables. Seeds need room to germinate and grow. Do not give more information than the student can assimilate. What you want to make sure you do is illustrate it. Now, let me just confess about me. I used to preach long sermons. I was a long-winded. I came up in the church in Memphis. If you didn't have at least 50 scriptures, and if you didn't preach about an hour, and girl, your brother was a long-winded preacher. That Alpha could preach until midnight. He wasn't boring, but I mean, that Alfred would preach, and we'd sit there and listen to him. And if he didn't sit down by 9, he was going to 9:30. I watched that like clockwork. But, you know, nobody complained. But what I'm saying is, I used to preach a long time. And then I decided, you know what? I heard a preacher named, I'll think of it in a minute, but he had preached 50 years. And a preacher student at Freed-Hardeman said to him, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do differently in your preaching? Now, he had preached 50 years. I had probably preached about 5. And here is what he said. He said, I would preach less content. I would illustrate it more. So I took my long sermons and made series. And I spend time illustrating. And so it helps in your class. That doesn't mean that you in your class or you have a short class. But give the student, remember we talked about last night, we're teaching around the horn, around the corners, because you got to have something for your different type of learner. And so you illustrate it in the different areas in which your students learn, and so now everybody gets something. So you illustrate that more. Share several practical areas where each point may apply. Progress from being just a knowledge dispenser, become a model, mentor, organizer of experiences that will help your students grow. Your objective is not getting through the material. Your objective is to help your student grow. Help your student grow. And so you sit around sometime and talk to your students about the growth that they are experiencing. And that's when your class really gets alive, because now your student begins to see, I'm growing. How many of you had this experience? How many of you remember when you were young, when you were 6 and 7, and you really wanted to grow? I mean, you would stretch. I can remember stretching, stand up in the door and say to my mama, see how tall? Well, you're no taller than you were last night. And I'm stretching, and inside the door had pencil marks all the way up, because every 2 days I want you to measure me. I'm wanting to grow. And if there was a mark a little higher than it was before, I was so excited I didn't know what to do. Growth is exciting. Now, here's the good news. Your students are growing, but you have to highlight it. You have to highlight it. Listen, little boys, you pinch their bicep and say, ooh, or they get so excited they don't know what to do. So you have to highlight and document the growth of your students. And when you see indicators that they have grown, you know, someone say something or do something and the child responds properly, commend them. Say, you know, I'm so proud of you. I remember the day when you would have been mad and you sat there so calmly. So you got to emphasize that, okay? Start with your students' context. Take advantage of the teachable moments. I cannot overemphasize that. Parents, how many of you are parents? You have to be ready to answer whatever question your children ask you when they ask you. You got to be ready. And I'm telling you, there are questions coming up now that have not come up before. Yes, sir. Children come home and say, you know, my friend at school, they have 2 daddies. Why don't I have 2 daddies? Yeah. My niece and her husband got a divorce. And the grandparents, the step-grandparents, everybody gave him gifts and spoiled him. He went to school and told his friends, tell your parents to get a divorce. Because now I get gifts from my daddy's parents, my mama's parents, my stepdaddy's parents. So I get gifts from 3 sets of grandparents. He loved it. He was telling his friends at school, tell your parents to get a divorce. You get more stuff. Now that was a mindset. See, now if you don't counteract that, he grew up celebrating divorce. It benefited me. I didn't lose nothing when my parents got a divorce. Matter of fact, I got more. So you sitting up here talking about what divorce costs, and he's sitting there thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. So the teachable moment, when the children or when a situation comes up, that's exactly what Jesus does in John chapter 8. When they came to him, he got a chance to take advantage of the teachable moment. Encourage students to observe settings outside of class where they may apply principles learned in class. Verify learning. In Matthew 22, Jesus will ask some questions to see, have they got it? Now, here's something that I noticed years ago. It may be changing now. Go to high school graduations. Out of the top 10 high school students, I guarantee you 7 of them are highly active in church. Point that out to folk. Yeah, go to your high school, and they're highly involved in church somewhere. Well, why is that? Because church reinforces what the school is reinforcing. I said to a principal one time, I said, what can we do to help? He said, just get the children to go to church. If you can just do that, we'll be better off. Just get them to go to church. Even the principal recognized if the children would just go to church. Okay? Verify learning. Take advantage of the teachable moment. We already said that. Any questions? Somebody make up a question. Now, I used to come to your Wednesday night Bible study, your Sunday Bible study. You guys were never this quiet. Matter of fact, the teacher couldn't teach for the questions.
I really like the way you put that together. I'm probably guilty in teaching. I will drift off subject and deal with whatever the discussion is. But when you said it the first time, the students shouldn't bring up their pet peeves. Well, if it's a teachable moment,
Absolutely.
I really want to deal with
Absolutely.
it because other people might have that same question. Mm-hmm. One question came up is, you guys are singing bass in the mic, and we told all of our friends that we brought to church with us, we don't do music. And they sitting there saying, y'all doing music. Mm-hmm. And so I felt, yeah, I need to deal with this because everybody else might be thinking the same thing. So until you give them a good answer to put that in perspective, that this is not instrumental music, regardless of what sound is coming out of my mouth, it's being made by my voice. So you got to keep that in perspective. So we dealt with it more than that, but it was a teachable moment.
Very good. Very good. Other question, comments? As a teacher, you have a golden opportunity, and you have a short window of time. They grow up so fast, and they're gone. And that influence, that window of opportunity, may not be there anymore. We lose too many children when they go to college. That tells us we aren't preparing them properly. We aren't preparing them for their atheistic instructors. We aren't preparing them for their roommate who makes fun of Christianity. We got to do a better job in preparing them. Other questions? Yes.
Program.
I have a published book. I have some material. Let me say this, and I don't want to get in trouble. I coach churches. One of the challenges is to get every component of it synchronized. Often we approach piecemealing, and it's like, any educators in here? What do you teach? Oh, that's English. English. Anybody teach high school or junior high? Elementary? Okay. If you are teaching 4th grade elementary English, there are some things that you know was taught in the 3rd grade, so you build onto that. And you know that's what they cover. I mean, you know that they cover this in the 3rd grade, and I'm doing this in the 4th grade, so they can connect what's going to be in the 5th grade. But that only happens because there's synchronization. So from the church perspective, it helps us to start synchronizing. It makes it far more effective. Now, it takes a whole lot of work to do that. But once we do that, it makes it much easier. So that would be my recommendation, to address the issue that you have raised. Because if you're teaching 4th grade and the 3rd grade teacher didn't teach what they were supposed to teach, it's going to make it difficult for you to teach what you're supposed to teach in the 4th grade. It's the same thing that happens over the summer. If the students forget what they learned last year, before you start teaching your 4th grade curriculum, you got to refresh the 3rd grade because they forgot it all during the summer. That's one of the arguments for a year-round school that people have made. All right, other questions? What time do we end? We don't do an hour and a half on Wednesday, do we? Huh? We are at our point. Oh, so that's your nice way of saying sit down and shut up? I was going to tell you some other stuff. I was going to tell you all of this before your preacher told me that we are at the point where I'm supposed to sit down. I have enjoyed being with you this week. This has been a fun week for me. But everywhere I go is fun. I decide what kind of time I'm going to have. I'm going to have a wonderful time even if I make you miserable. So I knew before I left home I was going to have a great time. I loved me some Huntsville when I was here. I actually look forward to being here permanently, but circumstances shifted and I'm not. There's some books on the table out there. If you want to connect, if you're interested in writing and publishing, I coach people to write and publish. I walk you all the way. I have a concept called From Thought to Bought. I take you from the time that you had a thought about writing until the time someone has bought your book. I coach relationships. I've written a book called From Me to We, Premarital Preparations. That's what destroys marriages. We don't stop being me and learn how to be we. If you don't do that, you're going to have difficulty. There's a book I wrote called Called to Be a Champion. It teaches you how to coach yourself into the champion circle. There's a book called Handle It. If you are a single mom raising a son, or if you want to be able to relate to your sons better, you need to get that book. Every first Tuesday night in the month at 9 o'clock Eastern, there are single moms across the nation that I am coaching using that book. And we teach them a skill, and we teach them how to impact their sons. It's a great challenge for moms to do that. And so that's the first Tuesday night in every month. We do that by teleconference. If you'll go on to my website, wisdom2wealth.info, you'll see a number of things that I do. If any of it bless your life, I'm a real estate sales trainer. I teach you how to be better in your business. You're starting a business, all those kinds of things we do significantly, and I'd be very glad to make an investment. Don't hesitate to hit me up at any time. Call me, send me an email or a text. Your preacher knows always how to get in touch with me. It's been a pleasure being with you. Pray for me and my efforts. Last week, I was in Arkansas for a funeral. Got a call a few minutes ago The doctor has given the lady who was funeralized last week, has given her mother 2 days to 3 weeks. And I just got that call today. So pray for, and I know you're praying for your preacher. Keep him encouraged and nurtured, and he'll keep you encouraged and nurtured. Thanks for being here.
Look at someone and holler, praise him. He's worthy to be praised. Before Brother Marshall take his seat, I want him to know I wasn't telling him that to stop. I was just telling him this is our time. Now he'll blame it on me. Have you enjoyed yourself thus far? Amen. Hate to end it tonight. We'll have to do this again, brother. Amen. We'll have to do this again. Any comments from the floor? Any questions? All right. Sister Dobbins is asking that we keep her in prayer. She says, keep me in prayer. I didn't feel good on Sundays, so thank you, church family, for your prayers. We ask that you keep Kimberly Adams in prayer. That's Mary Sherrill's baby girl. She's having surgery in the morning. Keep Sister Mary Sherrill in prayer. She's worried about her daughter, but at the same time, she's not feeling well neither. So let's keep her in prayer. Keep Brother Marshall's in prayer. He's going to leave in the morning around 4. So let's pray for his traveling grace. Okay? Are there anyone here tonight that desire prayer? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Bishop, you want to do the prayer now? I know you're the elder of the month.
Let us pray. Dear God of heaven, we thank you, dear Lord, for what our eyes have seen, our ears have heard on tonight. We thank you, Father, for Brother Marshall who came our way. We thank you, Father, for preparing him to deliver the information that he gave us on tonight. We pray, Father, that you would be with him as he travels home, that you build a hedge around him and be no hurt or harm as he returns to his destination. We pray, Father, for Brother Williams, who requests in prayer. We thank you for him. We thank you, Father, that you continue to be with Brother Williams, be with him, be with his family, be with his children, be with his mother, and be with his father. Bless them all, Father. Bless his family as only you can. Also, Father, there's others who requested prayer on tonight. Bless them, Father. Give them health, give them good health, give them guidance, and give them spiritual strength as well as traveling grace. We pray, Father, that you will continue to be with the Blue Spring Road Church of Christ, that you continue to bless us, Father, to have events such as this so we may be able to grow this year and be better Christians this year than we were on last year. We pray, Father, that you continue to be with Brother Rogers and Sister Rogers who work diligently here at this congregation. We pray, Father, that you will bless them, that you continue to give them the ability, make the bones strong and the mind strong so they may be able to continue to do the work that you have set before them. Also, Father, we thank you for this leadership. We thank you, Father, that you continue to bless us. Give us the wisdom to have events such as this so we can prepare our people for their benefit as well as for the benefit of this community. We thank you, Father, for each teacher who taught on tonight, as well as each student who was participating in the classroom. We pray, Father, that you continue to be with them, continue to bless them. It is in Christ's name I pray. Amen.